What is up, Rad Potential YouTube, and welcome to part 2 of the hybrid Renesis RX7 RX8 combined engine build for my Mazda RX8. I loved seeing all of you guys' comments on the last video, including all the ones that are like, it's never gonna work. The hybrid Renesis isn't worth it. Porting a Renesis isn't worth it. You're just ruining the Renesis engine. The RX8 apex seals aren't designed to go over a peripheral port exhaust. The E-shaft timing is wrong. I love reading comments on the internet, it is hilarious. So I want to address a few of your comments, and I want to go over with you the reasons why I'm doing some of the things in this engine the way I am doing them. The RX8 apex seal versus an RX7 apex seal seems to be the end-all be-all of why the hybrid engine won't work in the situation that I have it set up. I didn't have this set of rotors machined for RX7 apex seals, which means I'm going to be running an RX8 apex seal, which is very small, compared to an RX7 apex seal. You can see right there, it's literally almost half of the height. The RX7 apex seal, much stronger. Remember last video we were talking structural engineering, right, for the bridge and the BRIDGEPORT. The structural engineering of this RX7 apex seal versus this RX8 apex seal is nearly like having a 6-inch I-beam versus a 12-inch I-beam. If you put a bunch of load on it, obviously this one's going to be stronger. But what are we looking at as far as why would this RX8 apex seal fail? Inside of an RX8 engine, there would be no peripheral exhaust port. You can see my finger sticking out right there. There would be no peripheral exhaust port. That would be solid. Thus, this short, small, tiny, non-strong apex seal would be fully supported as it rolls around the housing, right? So we now have introduced this giant hole, which means that this turns into a bridge in and of itself, right? Now this apex seal has to not break when it goes across the hole. Let's see, can you guys even see it? Look right there, boom. So there is approximately that much width of apex seal unsupported now. So I read back on the RX7 Club forums, the RX8 Club forums, the whole deal, because that's typically what I do before I make these videos. I like to just go down the rabbit hole. And about the only data that I could find on the RX8 apex seal not being strong enough was an email sent in 2003 from somebody at Mazda Tricks to somebody who asked a question that said Mazda Tricks' test engine warped the apex seal when they used a stock OEM apex seal in their engine. Now, a stock OEM apex seal is very strong for the RX8, but that means they're brittle, which is why under boost, detonation, they kind of just crack and like stuff destroys the inside of engines. So one of the things that a lot of aftermarket apex seals do is they are not as strong, but they aren't as brittle. So when they do break, they tend to just warp, which means they bend, which is what Mazda Tricks had happen when they ran their hybrid engine in 2003, or I guess when they put RX8 rotors into a regular 13B engine, much like a 6-port from an FC or even an REW engine. So then they only had the peripheral exhaust. In my case, I've got all the exhaust flow. There shouldn't be that much heat in this apex seal, okay? I'm also not going to port the GSLSE housing any wider, okay? We're going to open it up a little bit up and down, so it will go unsupported for longer, but it's not going to be wider, meaning less support across the apex seal itself. So that's what I'm trying. The reason that I'm like, let's just send it with RX8 apex seals and hopefully it doesn't ruin my engine and destroy all the time and money I'm putting into this is mainly because there's nobody else out there that has any definitive data on whether or not you need to spend the extra money to have your RX8 rotor machined for RX7 apex seals when doing the hybrid. Now obviously if you're putting it in an S5NA whatever and you're trying to go all out, just get S5NA rotors. I can't run RX7 rotors with a Renesis engine because of where the intake ports are at. The side seal and the corner seal, the interface, it would fall out and it would break. It won't work. The geometry, it's all wrong. The other incredulous, funny comment I've seen is that the BRIDGEPORT is completely useless and it's not going to do anything. Well, honestly, you're probably right in the sense of the amount of horsepower that it's going to add is negligible. However, doesn't it look sick? Just look at it. Look at the bridge. Look at that. You can see your reflection too in the face of my mint RX8 Renesis iron, which are, you know, completely hard to come by these days. But let's talk about the Bridgeport and its flow and shaping it in the RX8 iron. This Renesis iron was never designed to have a Bridgeport ever. They were trying to eliminate all of the overlap in the Renesis engine, which goes back to when I said the comment about E-shaft timing. There is a bit of timing difference with the port timing of a Renesis, so they're able to get the intake ports open very soon in a Renesis engine. 3 degrees from top dead center versus the later engines are 20 something degrees from top dead center. So that gets that port open a lot sooner, and that's probably what the guy meant when he said the E-shaft timing and just fat fingered eccentric shaft. Because an RX8 eccentric shaft, I have an RX8 eccentric shaft in the RX7 weird conglomeration Turbo 2 engine, which is like a mixture of all sorts of different engines put together. So go check out that series if you definitely want to see, like, the interchangeability of rotary parts is rather crazy. How many things you can kind of just like, let's just put an RX8 shaft in this and change the bearings, and let's do this housing with this iron set and da-da-da. So go check that stuff out, because as much as like y'all think we're just getting crazy here putting stuff together, I've put a lot of weird stuff together before. Seems to be working decently well, running for the past couple years. So back to the Bridgeport. There's not a lot of meat in this iron for me to be able to port a Bridgeport like I would want to port one for, like, let's say an old school set of 4-port irons. There just isn't enough room there in order to keep a solid bridge for the corner seal. And then the coolant passageway is actually pretty deep right behind the port itself. Unlike an old R5 plate where the coolant passageway is real thin right there and you have a ton of meat and that port's very big. I've done the best that I can. The Bridgeport, literally, for the sake of the YouTube series, is just so I can put Bridgeport in the title. I'll be straight honest with you. That's all it is. It's probably going to brap a little bit because it does create overlap. So literally what the Bridgeport is going to be doing the most of is just saying we have a Bridgeport. That's pretty much it. It's going to make probably 5 more horsepower than if I literally just left it alone. And it's probably going to make this car 20% less drivable. But hey, it's YouTube. We got to put Bridgeport in the title because hopefully that's what brought you guys to the video. As far as other things with the Renesis hybrid engine that aren't going to work, the exhaust manifold. Bunch of comments on how we're going to make that thing work. Here's the deal, guys. I have an idea, and I'm excited to try the idea. I've been talking to one of my buddies who has a lot of rotary experience about an idea, and we're going to try it, and y'all are going to think it's weird, and I'm excited for it. And it involves managing the Siamese port from the center, because what you really want in an NA build is you want the scavenging effect to increase the velocity in the exhaust and get the air out of the engine as fast as possible. The RX8 engine, with its side exit exhaust ports, doesn't get the exhaust gas out. However, emissions, happy street driving. Not good for super high performance. So we're going to try to manage that. The center Siamese port means that it gets exhaust pulses from both rotors and they combine together. Now, you could probably build some fancy divider thing that went in there to separate them out and make these 2 teeny tiny pipes, or you could just like block it off and let all the carbon build up in there. But if you think about doing that, then like now you've created this wall where the sound is going to come back and it's going to mess up the pulses inside the engine. So like ultimately you need, like, you ever see those exhausts with the weird chamber that just goes off of it and does nothing? It's just like a bottle of collecting sound under your car. So we might be trying one of those. Might run a tube down from the Siamese port under the car and just cap it off. See what happens. Who knows? We will see. Before we jump into clearance and side seals and getting the rest of this engine ready to be stacked, comment any more questions about why this engine isn't going to work, because honestly, I want to know, because I couldn't find any data on it. I've Googled hybrid Renesis, hybrid RX8 bajillion times, read all the comments. I've watched all 62 Kyle Mohan videos on his hybrid Renesis stuff, but I've never seen one of these on a dyno. I've never seen any of them rip. I've never seen anybody do more than just stack one of them up. So give me some proof. I'll gladly watch a video if you put it in the comments. I'll gladly read an article. I will spend all the time, but for now, I'm going to build this engine and we're going to stick this in the car, and who knows, we might just blow it up in the first 500 miles. It might run for 10,000 miles. I don't really expect this to be a 100,000 mile engine because, like one of the other comments mentioned, if you're a member of my Patreon, you kind of know what my plans are for this, is that I really want to turbo a Renesis, like all out turbo. So this is kind of like just a stepping stone of like, let's try it while we're here. And then we're going to take the engine back apart, put RX7 Apex seals in it, and put solid dowels in it probably, and then like cram 20 pounds of boost through it on ethanol and see what it makes, because, you know, Renesis engines are cheap and I can't afford to buy REWs over and over again. So let's get to cutting side seals for this deal. I know that's a long ramble for the beginning. I hope it was entertaining for you, because honestly, the comments are always entertaining, but we've got work to do. So let's jump out of entertainment, jump back into rad science, and I'm going to show you how to clearance the side seals for a Renesis and show you everything else that I have ready to put this engine together. So let's jump right to it. Before we start grinding a side seal, I need to show you what a side seal looks like in an RX8 versus an RX7 side seal, what you guys would typically think it would look like. So a standard RX7 side seal is literally a rectangle. Just straight up, my marker is not working. It's a rectangle. Come on, come alive. Come alive, come alive. All right, the RX8 side seal is not a rectangle. It is actually tapered. So it is a V, like this. I'm exaggerating. Imagine some sort of inverted trapezoid thing. Full Top Gun inversion. So when you're setting up the clearance of an RX8 side seal, not only does its length matter, but the height in the groove matters, because as you push it down, it's going to fit the side seal in there differently. So a longer seal might have a good tolerance as it's loosely fit in the groove on an RX8, but as you push it down in the groove, all of your tolerance is going to go away and it's going to be too tight. Only the best OEM Mazda bits for corner seals and springs. Always want to make sure that your corner seals pop up and down freely in the rotor. If they don't, you need to do some more cleaning. In addition to, Mazda puts a pink dot on the outside because the plug, if you put this corner seal in backwards, the plug's going to fall out. It's going to ruin your engine. Don't do that. Bad to put the plugs in backwards. So make sure everything's good there. Then we've got to install the corner seal springs. These go with the wing tips of the spring. Always point those up. Reason for that is such that they don't get stuck under the corner seal while everything's bouncing up and down. So for illustration, I have an old RX8 side seal. So this one is pretty loose. It should fit in here. And we're going to slide this thing in, and I just want to show it to you. So this seal, as it sits right here, is pretty loose. I would say upwards of, that's a 16 thousandths feeler gauge, fits in there perfect. So upwards of 16 thousandths as it fits loosely here in the rotor. We're going to take 2 feeler gauges in order to accurately measure this. Both of them are 6 thousandths feeler gauges, and you're going to put them in behind the side seal. Make sure you get them down under the side seal spring. Pretty easy to get stuck. From here, slide the side seal to one side while it's loose. Push the side seal down till it's super tight in its groove, and we're going to take our 4 thousandths feeler gauge and make sure that it fits between the corner seal and the side seal on one side. You want this side to be all the way flush. So that's effectively how you measure the tolerance of the side seal in the rotor. As far as clearancing an uncut side seal, let's run through that process as far as fitting a new one. So you're going to be doing this process, checking the tolerance of it over and over and over again. From engine builders, the whole deal, we've seen engines come apart with nearly 10 thousandths of side seal clearance, and they still make good compression and they still run just fine. So don't be too afraid of needing to hit that 4 thousandths mark on the nose. Obviously a little bit tighter can be a little bit better, but we don't want to clearance these as tight as you would typically clearance an RX-7 engine. Take that information with a grain of salt. If you know an engine builder who does it a certain way, or if you are an engine builder, just follow the service manual exactly. However, my tendency is I'm going to shoot for 4 thousandths, maybe 5 or 6 thousandths, and not be that depressed if it's just a little bit looser than that. It's probably still going to be okay. As these side seals get compressed down in here, it does tighten up the tolerance as well. So there is a little bit of variables in how you're measuring it. RX8s have lettered side seal grooves in your rotor, so you can buy a pre-cut side seal and avoid having to do all of this. I, however, buy the uncut fit to custom spec side seals for your engine. So when you have these, you get them out of the package. One side is going to have the perfect chamfer to fit the corner seal. The other side is just going to be cut off square. In order to fit these, you don't just want to grind this all willy-nilly. You want to actually take some time to set up either a jig or hold this at a proper angle such that your cut on the end of the side seal fits against the corner seal tightly. So over here at the bench with my upright drill press here from Harbor Freight, nothing fancy. Everybody always comments, why don't I use this to drill holes? Because I normally just drill holes with a hand drill. That's typically because my drill press is always set up to clearance side seals. What I've got are 2 rotors that I have chopped up. You can see right here, look at this. This is a 12A rotor that's been cut into 3 pieces. I think one of the pieces I actually sold to one of my Patreon members. So being a member of the Patreon has its perks. But how do we use this to clearance a side seal? So in my drill press, I have a grinding stone that's approximately the same diameter as the corner seal. It's just a slight bit smaller. And I've got that set up such that it's fixed in the corner seal location. Having the rotor cut allows me to have a longer side seal, and I can get it in the side seal groove such that when I'm clearancing it, it's clearanced at the exact radius of the corner seal, at the exact angle of where the corner and side seal meet, thus giving me like literally the perfect fit. You can do this on something flat. I don't know the actual percent difference of if you need to go to this level of detail to clearance a side seal versus just doing it by hand and kind of holding the angle right. I haven't done a specific engine test, just comparing that difference alone. So basically what I do, turn this baby on. You take your side seal, I like to do counts of 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. So I'm holding it against the thing for 3 seconds and pulling it off with an equal thing. Typically, 1 count like that, 1, 2, 3, and pull off is like maybe a little long, but I'm not pushing very hard. You don't want to concentrate a lot of heat in the end of this side seal. A closer up view of this without the noise. Basically, this is an RX8 rotor, so the groove fits this side seal perfectly. And you can see here, I'm just pushing it lightly into that bit. And what that's going to do is it's going to clearance the side seal to fit that corner seal perfectly. So you're effectively going to be going back and forth from wherever you're clearancing side seals to your rotor a bajillion times in order to get this fit. Once you get in the groove of it, literally the side seal groove, once you get down in there that this is about the right length, then it becomes where you're going to start using the feeler gauges and using the actual measuring the clearance of it to get this close. Typically, you can just go and it gets looser and looser, and after about the 7th one, you'll be like, that's about right. Then you'll check it with the feeler gauge, it'll line up perfect, and you'll be pretty much on the road, ready to go. Once you get all the side seals fitted into the rotor, it's very important that you don't mismatch the side seal to the side seal groove, especially now that you've just custom fit it to this rotor. So if you've seen in my previous videos, I have these giant wooden trays that are set up. Front rotor, engine number 1. Charles made these years ago. He's got a big stack of them. I snagged 2 of them. He's letting me borrow them indefinitely. And I've labeled them 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 1, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 4. So what do those numbers mean? First, you have to pick an identifying mark on the rotor from which to start. Looking at an RX8 rotor, there is a ton of letters on this thing. I'm going to start up here where the little barcode is. This E is this rotor's balance, so it needs to match with another E. The S, the Q, the O, those are the length of the side seal slots. So if you are ordering pre-cut side seals, those are the letters you would use to choose your side seal. This is going to be number 1, number 2, number 3. So if you imagine a side seal goes from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, from 3 to 1. When I flip it over, 1 becomes 4, and then I still go clockwise as normal. So using 1 related to 4, it's kind of different. You wouldn't just count the same way. So the apex seals, like the number 1 apex seal matches with 4, etc. It gets a little confusing, but do it your own way. Make sure that you don't lose track of your side seals after you've clearanced them. You could put Sharpie tick marks on them or something like that as well. So from here, because I've got to do the other side of this rotor, I'm now going to take the 1 to 2 side seal. It goes in the 1 to 2 tray. The 2 to 3 side seal, the 2 to 3 tray. 3 to 1 side seal, the 3 to 1 tray. Y'all see how this is working. I also put the corner seal, the number 1 corner seal goes in the number 1 side seal tray. Number 2 corner seal goes in the number 2 to 3 side seal tray, and I just count through just like that. So if I'm assembling it, it's like this corner seal, this side seal, this corner seal, this side seal, corner seal, side seal. Right now, all the springs are brand new. You can just put them back in there. It's the same. You pushing on it is not going to fatigue one more than the other, and they're all the exact same. So we're going to flip this over. I'm going to repeat the process, and then we'll be basically completely ready to stack up this engine. Finished up my last side seals and the last bit of porting. Now this engine's ready to be stacked up. So let's go through the Mr. Rad pre-flight checklist for building a rotary engine, or at least stacking up a rotary engine here at the shop. We've got rotors, seals, everything clearanced, ready to go. Apex seal springs are in here. Everything that goes on the rotor is ready to go in here. Aside from the oil control ring O-rings, the rubber O-rings, I've got to put those in their respective housings, and I'll do that whenever I assemble the rotor and start stacking everything up. I've got power seals, apex seals for this engine. I've never ran them before. People speak very highly of them. I'm curious to see how they hold up, especially being that we might just shatter them to smithereens because we have a peripheral exhaust port and not the side exit and not the support and all the deals. Hopefully, they're going to hold up pretty good. My ideal situation is that they bend, but they do not shatter and ruin everything inside the engine, and we can just test them like they are right now. Irons, everything is basically ready for its final clean. So I'll blow all these out with air one more time, hose them down with brake cleaner, make sure everything is good. One of the cool things that I did while I was finishing up the porting, big street port on the primary ports, but I'm going to leave the primary, i.e. the Siamese exhaust ports, actually small. What I don't want to do is create a priority to send exhaust gases out that Siamese port. We really want to restrict that port and get air to go out the rest of the ports. So that's a neat thing that I thought of that while I was sitting there porting. I'm like, man, I probably just shouldn't port this. So we left that one stock. GSLSE housings all ready to rip, front iron all ready to go. We've got an OEM Mazda soft seal set, so these are coolant seals, OEM oil control O-rings, OEM tension bolt washers, dowel O-rings, all the small stuff to put the engine together. I grabbed an E-shaft off the shelf, freshened it up. This one actually came out of a Titanic engine from the silver RX8 that Calvin bought a couple years ago for like $500. The engine was locked up due to coolant seal failure, but this thing actually looks mint, so we're going to use it. Not from, this engine. It's a hybrid amongst just all the parts I got laying around. As far as going through everything else, we got dowels, oil pump drivetrain, new rear main, front main, counterweight for the RX8, the RX8 Torrington bearings. We've got our in-place spacer, got some spares in case I need to change it. Front washer, O&P drive gear, keyways, stationary gears with new bearings. So let's take a trip to Calvin's shop. We're going to push new bearings in these. So we're here at the shop getting ready to push in new stationary gear bearings for the hybrid RX8 Renesis engine. This is the old stationary gear, the rear one. The RX8s have a set screw inside of them that holds the bearing in. So unlike an early generation rotary where you have to align the stake in the side of the bearing with the notch in the stationary gear itself, we don't have to do that here. However, we do have to make sure that set screw lines up and that the oil passage for the bearing lines up as well with the hole for the oil in the stationary gear. You're going to want the proper tool for pushing this bearing out. I would suggest not using a socket. This is a Pineapple Racing stationary gear bearing pusher. I think this comes in a kit with the actual rotor bearing pusher as well. So first you take the piece without the collar, put that deal down into the bearing just like that. This pusher fits through the stationary gear itself, so all we do is just punch it, we floor this thing, it goes all the way out the bottom. It's going to make a nice little pop when we first get started. There she goes. And now you push the whole thing out. Got a brand new Mazda bearing, the yellow size. Whenever you're picking a size for your stationary gear bearings, The yellow is the most oversized inner diameter. The difference between the smallest one and the biggest one is literally so minuscule it probably wouldn't really matter if you ordered any variation of the size. I put yellow ones in basically everything. Boom. Just like that, the bearings are pushed in. Now we'll reinstall the set screws, ready to rock. Gotta love movie magic. We can just teleport other places and come right back. Stat gears with fresh bearings, ready to go. The set screws are Loctited in, ready to rip. Rear hub bolt. Oil pump bolts. The oil pump, nice and clean, ready to rock. A pickup tube that's all cleaned out, ready to rock. We've got the front hub bolt with the thermal pellet block off. Oil pressure regulator, rear stat gear bolts, front stat gear bolts, the front stat gear plate. Comment below, how many tension bolts are there in an RX8 engine? And then, if you're a super RX8 expert, how many long tension bolts are in an RX8 engine? I'll give you a hint. The long ones have dots on them. So if you have an engine that's sitting on your bench, you can go out there and count and then come back and comment below. Pretty much, that's all the hard parts you need to get the engine stacked. If I'm forgetting something, drop it in the comments. But I'm pretty sure I got it all. I have a list. We'll check it. If not, I'll realize it as I'm putting the engine together. But basically, we got everything here. That's pretty much it. We're ready to stack this engine. The porting is done. The side seals are fitted. Everything is ready to rock. I can't wait to see the comments on this video for my response to your comments on the last video, because I love learning about this stuff. And this is something that we've got to learn it firsthand. I can't go back and confidently say that the forums are correct and all of the keyboard warriors on the internet say that this won't work is actually true. I don't know. But here's the deal. I get enough people asking me about doing a hybrid build. We've seen all of the parading around of all these other hybrid builds on the internet, but I've never seen one on a dyno. Never found a video of one running. I'd love to see one running and ripping and like doing car things. Stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends if they love rotaries or they don't love rotaries if they're just car enthusiasts. I'm excited to get new viewers around here, excited to get more people in the comments, and we've got a whole lot going on. So I got to put the slides back on the 4-rotor and the oil pan, just got to put it together, nothing too crazy, waiting on some stuff to drain, get some oil out of this thing so that the oil pan actually seals. The green car, that's what we're working on now. The rally car, I got to do some valve train and some head work for it. We're taking a road trip this weekend to get a trailer. The RX8 is just, it's doing RX8 things, and trust me guys, I've been driving the wheels off of the yellow RX8. The exhaust is just slightly annoying. So I'm ready to get it on the dyno ASAP after the next rally, and then we'll know the numbers, and then I can put the stock RX8 exhaust back on so that I can live in my nice street car, quiet yellow RX8. And all of these cars can be loud and obnoxious, but having a daily is kind of nice. And in addition, if you're on Patreon, you know what's going on. Behind the scenes, I guess. Not really behind the scenes, but just the scenes. There's a few other projects that I've picked up and or will be picking up here in the next couple of days. One that's actually sitting right on the other side of this wall that I've alluded to in some Instagram posts, and I'm excited to see kind of how that stuff comes together. It won't be happening like right away, but I might film a video to kind of announce some things here soon. So definitely, if you haven't checked out the Patreon, go check it out. Love the support over there. I answer questions. Patreon members ask them, send me messages directly. That's the best way to get a hold of me if you have questions about, you know, why am I doing a hybrid Renesis one way or the other? Or why should you build an RX8 back to stock versus actually porting it? Or your RX8 doesn't start for this reason or that reason, etc. So definitely love and appreciate those guys. The support over there is amazing. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see y'all in the next one. Keep it rad. What's up, Letty? It's weird. This video, I decided that I was going to pick up the camera and move it around instead of putting the camera on a tripod and talking to a camera like a corporate businessman. What do you think? Is that the move? We move the camera around more? Hold it in front of our face like a vlogger guy? Or do we try to set up and be a little more professional? So I was learning from the Gears and Gasoline guys a little bit while we were there. And it's, you know, interesting to apply. In addition, guys, guess what I scored? Now we have a Mazda Speed front bumper for an RX8.